morning, students. Today we'll start with our next chapter, chapter 3 of History, Rural Life and Society. Watch the video carefully. When the British came to India, villages were self-sufficient units. Most of the things that the villagers needed were produced in the village itself. A farmer paid a small part of his produce to the king. If the crops failed due to natural calamities, the king reduced the land revenue. The coming of the British, however, changed the scenario. Revenue began to be collected by the agents of the company. It was fixed and had to be paid in cash. No concessions was given, even during years when crops failed. Now we would see rural life during Mughal period. The land during Mughal period was of three types. First one was the land that was given to Mansabdars as Jagir. Mansabdars are the people belonging to military rank. Jagir means land granted as token of appreciation by the kings. Then second was the Khalisa land. It was the revenue yielding land, which was administered directly by the Imperial Revenue Department. Third one was the Inam land. Inam land was the tax-free land that was a gifted land. During the later stages of Mughals, that is during the declining days, the Ijara system or revenue farming was introduced to boost up the state's revenue. Under this system, the land were farmed out on Ijara to a third party called revenue farmer. The literal meaning of the word Ijara means to rent the land. The revenue farmers paid the government 9/10 of the whole collection and kept the rest 1/10 as his collection charges. Zamindars were the mediators between government and peasants. Mandals were appointed on behalf of zamindars. You have read in the previous chapter that after the Battle of Buxar, the English East India Company got the right to collect revenue of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha, that is the Diwani right. The company needed money to purchase goods, to run the administration, to maintain an army and to fund numerous wars. Since land revenue was the main source of income, its timely collection was very important for the company. When Warren Hastings was the Governor General, the company gave the right to collect revenue from an area to the highest bidder. But this system failed as bids were made for an amount much more than what the land could actually produce. Bidder is someone who offers to pay a particular amount of money for something. An auction is a public sale at which items are sold to the person who offers to pay more. As we already know that East India Company came to trade. So you can see in the given map that they used to import silver and gold to buy cotton, silk, spices, etc. And then this was exported. But just because of this revenue system, their income was increased, as all along the aim of the company was to make as much money as possible. So now there was no need to import silver and gold. This revenue collection was self-sufficient to buy Indian spices, cotton, muslin, etc. To smoothen the revenue collection mechanism, the company brought about some changes. They introduced 3 new revenue collection systems: the permanent settlement, Mahalwari and RYOTWARI. Let us study the main features, merits and demerits of them. First, permanent settlement. To ensure a regular income, the company decided to fix the land revenue of Bengal and Bihar on permanent basis. This scheme was introduced in 1793 by Lord Cornwallis and came to be known as permanent settlement. The local zamindars was asked to collect revenue from the peasants. If he was able to collect more revenue from the land, he could keep the surplus amount. But if he could not pay the stipulated amount, he would lose his zamindari rights. The land then would be given to another zamindar. The system of fixing the revenue in advance was extremely advantageous to the company. However, peasants suffered terribly. So there were too many advantages to the company and many disadvantages to the peasants and zamindars. They had to pay a very high revenue and could be evicted if they failed to do so. The zamindars were not interested in investing money to improve productivity of land. To pay the revenue, the peasants were often forced to borrow money from the money lenders. Once in debt, the peasant found it difficult to get out. Now you can see in the picture working of permanent settlements. Peasants are giving revenue to zamindars and zamindars are giving to East India Company. Zamindars are acting as a mediator between the company and the peasants. Peasants are the farmers and they are collecting their revenue from the moneylenders or from the sale of the produce on their land. Then we can see the next one is the RYOTWARI system. This was devised by Thomas Munro and Captain Reed. It was introduced in the parts of Karnataka, Mysore and Bombay and Madras. Under this, the company made a revenue settlement directly with the peasant or ryot. The farmer was the owner of the land as long as he paid the land revenue. Also, the revenue was fixed according to the fertility of the land. But this system too has its own merits and demerits. There were no intermediaries or zamindars who could exploit the peasants, and the land was owned by the cultivators themselves. Then there were many demerits also. This system, even though was better than the permanent settlement, but the revenue collection system was still rigid, and government had right to increase the land revenue in any of the cases. Now you can see the working of RYOTWARI system in the image. See, the peasants are giving revenue directly to the East India Company and there are no intermediaries here. Then is MAHALWARI system. The MAHALWARI system was introduced in present-day Western UP, parts of Madhya Pradesh and Punjab. In these areas, land were commonly owned by a group of villages called MUGHALs. The task of collecting the revenue and paying it to the company was given to the headman of each mahal. Also, the revenue demand was not fixed permanently but could be revised periodically. It too had a demerit that talukdars retained all the rights and ryots became landless tenant. Then you can see in the image working of MAHALWARI system. Mahals, that a group of villages that they were giving the revenue to the village head and he was giving to the East India Company. So here again there is one intermediary. Now in the given map you can see how the revenue system was implemented and which revenue system was implemented in different parts of the nation. Land now became a sellable commodity which could be bought, sold or mortgaged. This had a deep impact on rural life and economy. The status of landlord was just to collect the rent and the status of peasants was to collect money from the money lenders who used to exploit them by charging high rate of interest. The legal system was also not helpful. Then the artisans and craftsmen suffered a lot. This revenue system of Britishers encouraged individualism and discouraged the joint family system. The need of the village was not important, but what was produced for the market was given more importance. Now we will see commercialization of agriculture. The 19th century saw an increase in the cultivation of commercial or cash crops such as indigo, jute, oil seeds, sugarcane, tea, coffee, cotton, etc. These crops were widely used in British manufacturing industries and hence the company encouraged their cultivation. The officials of the company forced the peasants to sow cash crops in their field. In course of time, however, this practice resulted in a decline in the production of food grains and an acute shortage of food supply. Here are some of the pictures of cash crop. Land revenue system introduced by the Britishers were not accepted anymore by peasants and zamindars. This resulted in n number of revolts. Many of the revolts were there. Some of the famous ones are the Deccan riots done in Pune and Ahmednagar, Molaf farmers of Kerala, and these were done because you have already read the demerits of the systems. Indigo is a blue colored dye obtained from the indigo plant. It is used to dye clothes. There was a great demand for it in Europe because of the Industrial Revolution. Since the climate of England was not suitable, it imported indigo. Company forced farmers of Bengal to grow only indigo. By the beginning of 19th century, Indian indigo was a major export to England. Cultivating indigo was a labor-intensive job. Over time, the price paid to cultivators became less and less. There came a time when he had no option but to revolt. The Indigo Rebellion of 1859 to 60 in Bengal was a powerful peasant protest. Thousands of peasants refused to sow indigo on their land. Agents of the planters were beaten up in many places. The final blow to indigo came when the synthetic dye was invented, and Gandhiji's efforts in 1980 gave a relief. In 1860, Deena Bandhu Mitra wrote a play called Neel Darpan, the indigo planting mirror, in which he highlighted the atrocities committed by the indigo planters on the indigo cultivation. Sayyid Ahmad of Bareilly was the leader of Wahabi movement in India. The Wahabis advocated a revival of Islam in India. Under the British, they had been deprived of their power and authority. They condemned the British policies and spread anti-British sentiment. They were joined in their revolt by the peasants and artisans. Fakir and Sanyari rebellion movement were also famous movements. Punjab-A case study. Britishers introduced advancements and technologies in India for their benefit, but it also benefited Indians. For example, introduction of Persian wheel and irrigation canal. Some of the examples are Sirhind Canal and Upper Bhari Doab Canal. Then the canal irrigation system is the largest in the world. In the image you can see Sirhind Canal and Persian wheel. Then timeline and summary is given. In 1722 CE, Ijadari system was introduced. 1786 permanent settlement. 1793 regulation was passed. 1830 Mahalwari system and indigo agitation of Bengal started from 1859 to 1860. Then the summary. Ijadari system, permanent settlement, RYOTWARI, Mahalwari, these three were introduced by the Britishers. Then cash crop, that is commercialization. Then peasants revolt and indigo revolt. These were the revolts. then Wahhabi movement, and Punjab a case study. So here we complete our chapter. Thank you.